Hello, everyone. This is Professor Mirza, and I will be discussing today an interesting topic that I thought about researching, but I never fully accomplished it. So that's on one of my to-do list to further compensate for my hard work and efforts. But hopefully, one day I might be able to accomplish it and get my PhD and be done with it, right? But this was a topic that I was inspired by an article which I read online regarding people being fanboys and fangirls of video games and anime and all those things. And I researched deeper into it, and I came across the different topics such as consumer cultural theory, netnography, videography, and also deeper aspects of consumer behavior. So I just kept digging, and I thought this was an interesting topic. I discussed this almost 7 years ago in my marketing classes when the idea of social media was also expanding on the horizons of branding and allowing people to have more voice in the construction of a brand. So, without any further ado, I present to you a discussion on fan-based loyalty that can be infectious, and I call it cults, tribes, and fans. And why I put the wolf there? Because wolves moves in packs, with the exception of lone wolves. So, as I said, my inspiration also came from curiosity. I teach a variety of marketing courses, including branding and principles of marketing, advanced marketing strategy, digital marketing. And I saw a pattern that mostly was connected to consumer behavior, which we also call behavioral economics, and the strength of branding coming from the consumers themselves. So I kind of identified them as having a more of a cultist mindset, that their fan following can be very rabid or somewhat also related to subculture genres and identity groups that people associate themselves with to have a better ground and understanding in their own society. So they relate to a brand directly through their identity groups. Also, what was the inspiration was from my own teaching that I met many students in my past 8.5 years per semester, and I noticed that they're quite attached to the brands that they buy, especially middle to upper middle income. They have more choices in the upper income society, and they choose to buy certain brands without even reviewing their functional basis. And if the brand exists, they need to have it, like Nike shoes or Apple iPhones, without question. And how is it that these people, despite having this sort of knowledge and all the information available to them, yet remain loyal? At what level is the brand resonating with them? All these terminologies, of course, are related to branding and marketing. But of course, if you want deeper understanding, you can obviously research yourself, or you can send me an email, and I would be more than happy to oblige. Anyways, moving ahead, I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. I'm monitoring. I don't want to go over the 20 minutes limit. But let's talk about tribes and also cultures of tribes. And when we think about tribes, I think some of us might stereotype it and go right to Africa or the indigenous tribe in New Zealand and even what you call Australia, remote regions and so. But notice all of us are part of a tribe. We came from tribal cultures too. And some of it exists, and we call it also collectivist cultures. Every tribe and stereotype in movies, American movies would have a witch doctor, a village elder, the shamans, the women of the village going to take water from the river, and the men going hunting and gathering. And today, as Marty Newmeyer has said, that marketing today is about creating tribes, and tribal behavior means creating your own families. When you create your own families, you are sharing what we call interest or value-based system. So we're all part of a tribe by default. And as we grow older, we gain this sort of insight that we can choose to be part of someone or something or some sort of motto in our life gives us that sort of direction that this is what we choose to be it liberal, conservative, be it vegan or meat eater, be it religious or atheist or nonconformist. All those things give us direction and then also help us choose what we want. And those choices sometimes can be imposed on us, and maybe sometimes we can also make the decision that that imposition makes sense to us. Some people religious people have been imposed on certain diets. Like Muslims have halal diet, Jewish have kosher diets, and I would maybe safely say that some Indian people have vegan or vegetarian diets, but that's been imposed. However, they accept it, and maybe they don't wish to change because of losing that sort of tribal identity that that they stand by so proudly with. this kind of concept leads into the further things such as I would say what we see experienced now in some cultures of youth, and I don't really mean young people like who are 16 or 18, and even older, such as the otakus who are very, I would say, loyal to the fan base of their anime. Anime being Japanese animated entertainment, such as mangas, so comics, and animes, of course, animated videos and dramas, and I would say action movies. And they're quite what's the word, fervent about this. They follow this religiously almost, and it gives them more meaning to their life, and they have a fan base on what do you call it? They themselves can create their own fan base to create loyalty further for the brand that's come out. And this is quite ironic that even though it's stationed in Japan, the culture has flown from Japan all the way to France, France being the second largest consumer of Japanese entertainment, such as manga and anime. Other things that surprise me till this day are, what do you call it, Mac heads. Now, this is quite a bit of a joke. You'll hardly find someone with a tattoo of an Apple logo on their body. But if you do, at one point, people were very, very, I would say, deathly loyal to the Apple brand. As long as Steve Jobs was alive, he had a huge impact on redesigning the culture of how technology is consumed. And in his way, he was quite revolutionary. In fact, now the rest is history. It's a moot point that whatever he's done and created has a huge impact on the tech industry. But more than tech, it also has an impact on consumer behavior and how people are so fervently loyal that they choose not to believe anything else is better. They accept it for what it is. It's like if you are quite religious, it's hard to change that core belief. That if you believe in Allah or Jesus and you try to convert someone to another religion, they will not accept any fact or any point that would discern that this religion might not be the right one. However, Mac heads are quite similar. They believe maybe their Apple brand is a bit like a religion, or more so, their complete identity. Anyways, the third one, which has been written about quite a lot in consumer culture theory, is Harley Davidson. Okay, and I think I'm blocking off what's written at the bottom. I wrote Harley Davidson is an army, and people who ride Harley Davidson, they're middle-aged, maybe above, and they have this concept of having a motorrad and the open highway and driving through there, riding their bikes in open air and having freedom, which is not so different from riding a car, I suppose. But it's a cultural thing too. If you own a Harley, you're a different person. The way you dress in those leather jackets, in those dark blue denim jeans, and the loud sound of the purring sound of the Harley Davidson, it says something about you. You can take it any way you want. Maybe you're a tough person, you take life as it is, and you are open to adventure. Maybe at even, I would say, an older age, you still crave for adventure and the open road. It's a bit like the American dream that, the, what do you call it, traveling everywhere within the US to the frontier. So it might be also linked to that. However, there's many theories about this. But how does it, what do you call it, create a tribe of so many people that for them a Harley is a way of life? The way they dress, the way they communicate, the way they gather, it's incredible. It's incredible, truly. Another one is about comic books. This is more or less related to the US, all right? And in the US, the pop cultural icon, I would say the top pop cultural icon is Batman. And Batman has many iterations. The comic has been coming out since 1936, but the real pop culture impact came during the time of Adam West when they took out the campy Batman series, which was meant for kids, but it had a huge impact also for the generations, and they keep reiterating it, and to something more darker, something more visually appealing, and the pop culture has not died out. And if it's pop culture, it should have some time in its peak and just die out. But now it's relatively a subculture where people say, being Batman could be a possibility. And even though it could be a joke, it could be a costume, but there has been, what do you call it, discussion regarding his justice motto, such as not to kill the Joker, right? And why not? Because it's like murdering someone. is equivalent to becoming a criminal. And this is quite what's the word, contradictory to the laws that they have the Second Amendment to bear arms, which is quite confusing for most people in the US, that they say, no, you must have guns, and whereas Batman advocates non-gun violence. So it is quite contradictory, but for me, America has always been at two extremes. Either you're very liberal or you're very conservative. There's no in between. So this is a classic case of those sort of extremes, that Batman is much more popular in a country where he is, I would say, a contradiction for most. Anyways, once again, you notice that these four sorts of examples that I've given all have links to brand brand power, cultures, tribal behavior, cults, cult-like behavior too, that people are very feverish about following them, and even dressing up or showing their way of life. In fact, for I haven't mentioned those, but there's also Star Trek and Star Wars, or even football teams who have fans that are very rabid about them. But I could go on about that. However, it will take up too much time, and I don't want to waste it over there. So let's say, why are they formed, and not how, but really why. First reasoning that comes up for me is irrational behavior and how we satisfy irrational behavior. And the concept of irrational behavior exists in every human, right? We have, according to the branding pyramid, we first start off with the functional promise, right? What are the attributes we're going after? Then comes the emotional promise from the brand, and finally we come to the brand experience. But if you've noticed, and you can experiment this with anyone that you know who's bought something quite expensive or out of their budget, they will try to rationalize it with you. If you ask them, why did you buy such an expensive car? Why did you buy expensive shoes? They will say, oh, because it was at a discount, or because I really wanted it badly, because it looks really nice and beautiful and elegant. But those are not functional value-based reasoning, right? Those are still part of someone's fantasy. And human beings like to rationalize decision based upon fantasy. Everyone has a fantasy. And because of this fantasy, it leads to something called desires. And I came up with this term. Of course, you're free to contradict this, but in marketing, we have needs, wants, and demands, right? But those are quite basic. What about desires? Desires are like demands, right? Demands are rational. They're based on functionality. They're based on economics. When we have enough money, we would like to spend on maybe goods that can, sustain us. But irrational demands are those that not necessarily going to sustain us, right? And at the same time, we base it on fantasy that we want to be bigger, better, smarter, beautiful, sexier. So we go and buy things like maybe luxury items or certain items that may not be luxurious but have no functional value. They have emotional value. And the same thing goes with our infatuation with idols, like pop idols, Michael Jackson, Queen's Freddie Mercury, rock stars, football players, all people in sports and entertainment are literally idols for a lot of people. The survey was conducted sometime back in London, where the top three desired occupation by children nowadays, number one being a YouTuber, number two being a social media influencer, and number three perhaps a doctor. Now that is quite scary for some parents, right? But YouTubers and social media influencers are the latest idols. People follow them on TikTok, and they follow them on Instagram, and there's no rationalizing it. Why do you follow these people and not some scientist or some art, like true artist? There's no rationalizing behind that. And people justify their irrational behavior by rationalizing about their emotions and their fantasies. That being said, let's talk about the subconscious mind and the decision. Most of us, this is a trick I pull with my students, and I ask them, what are you going to have for lunch today? And they've decided very quickly that we will eat this, we'll go to this restaurant. And I said, Heather, let's try to look at it consciously and retroactively. And I said, have you ever decided on your lunch maybe a month ago, maybe 3 days ago, and that you're impulsively going to a certain restaurant with your friends or family was not truly an impulse, was already a subconscious decision you made a few days ago? And they're like, oh, yes, that is. And they said, I wanted to go to XYZ restaurant and I choose to do it today, but I don't know why I'm going. and that's subconscious, right? The subconscious makes a better decision or a faster decision, or maybe a decision that we might have calculated subconsciously. So decisions like they say are mainly heuristics, and they're like the rules of thumb. Heuristics, and are not necessarily correct. Think of this way: when children start eating food, some of the children don't like vegetables or broccoli because maybe their mind is saying that this color or this odor coming from a certain food item will not be delicious to you because they've tried something other than that and they found it to be quite disgusting. And for them, the rule of thumb is anything green, like broccoli or like it could be cucumber, will not be delicious. Notice how this is also applied to brand logos, such as McDonald's and Burger King, Wendy's. They all have the red and yellow color in it. The red color meaning for excitement, yellow for hunger. It's quite obvious that the green color does not resonate well with children, maybe, and that's why they kept on focusing on creating that sort of color scheme for the subconscious mind. Also, notice that heuristics usually helps with also correct decisions. Let's say that you're at a green light or a red light, sorry, and when this goes green, you automatically know this is an international sign for cars to move by. The orange logo is for warning to slow down. The red one is to you have to stop and not move forward. The same stop sign is in red all over the world, right? Indicating a warning. So your subconscious mind is doing most of this thing. And I was researching this thing about on the highway, sometimes people get hypnotized by seeing the same scenery over and over again. And they have built in this function in cars nowadays that when you're driving and maybe you're a little too tired and falling asleep, and maybe you're moving away from your lane, your car will buzz you on your steering wheel because it's what do you call it, automatic, the hypnosis. So sometimes a change of scenery is required on the highway. Sometimes it might put up a different type of trees or different sort of landscape might be visible on purpose so you don't, I would say, get hypnotized. But this is the thing with our brain. We are not in control of it. The subconscious mind, right in the spinal cord all the way down to our coccyx, is mostly in control. It controls more than 3 trillion functions. But so this brain of ours is not really our friend. It can lead to what we call errors and biases because we've been conditioned. And you know about Pavlov. He talks about conditioning many years ago, and that is quite true. And people who are more aware of who they are, self-actualized people, are the ones who can condition themselves consciously. But most of us, most human beings, are conditioned subconsciously, such as eating breakfast with cereals. Do you have to eat cereals in the morning? Not necessarily. In fact, you can eat anything for breakfast. But Kellogg's wanted people to eat cereals because he believes eating cereals is more Christian. And I can let you research that. The reason for that was, of course, he said the other type of breakfast people were having were led to sinful thoughts. And then he got a hold of this advertiser who started publishing in TV and media many years ago that the breakfast of Americans is cereals with milk, whereas they were having actually toast in the morning with butter or I would say jam and a cup of coffee. All of that changes through conditioning. So our mind saying that we need to have cereals in the morning with milk, and then the milk industry publishes the Got Milk campaign. Most of us are lactose intolerant because after the age of 3, we should not be even drinking milk. And there's research about that. But it's not easily digestible. We have to move on to different forms of food items. But companies sometimes condition us that you must have milk with cereals. In fact, you can eat cereals with anything, yogurt too. But why that? We never question it. And it becomes part of our conditioning and also sometimes part of our mini fantasy too. That being said, let's talk about the cult behavior. And what is a cult brand? And I'm not talking about cults like the Ku Klux Klan or any sort of weird cult, the satanic cult or any sort. No, not those. Just a brand that has a level of following that is almost cult-like, right? And this is a picture, of course, of the late Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son. He came in a movie called The Crow, and he was killed in that movie. It's quite unfortunate, but it led to what we call a rise in people watching the movie constantly and became a cult-like classic. Usually we have these terms for movies who have cult-like followings, pulp fiction or B movies, scientific movies, or sci-fi movies, as they say. So these are a special class of magnetic brands that command super high customer loyalty, right? And once again, they're part of people's fantasies like comic books and movies and entertainment and even fashion clothing brands, and the list can go on. Even events like Woodstock or Burning Man, right? Their customer base is almost evangelical and get other devotees to follow them. They're like, no, they will try to convince you to follow them, all right? And this is quite apparent even if try having a conversation about someone who is a big fan of football, right? Soccer, as they say in the US, right? And you notice how they try to tell you their team is their best. Or they get angry with their team and saying, but still, they'll love them. They love Liverpool or Chelsea, and they'll talk about it constantly. I know these sort of people. I don't like sports that much. I've noticed in my country where they play cricket, they will go on about it. In fact, your boss, your manager will talk hours about it. And this is probably the reason I never got a promotion, because I never liked cricket. Sorry if anyone likes cricket, but that's just me. I used to be a fan of football, then I just gave up after researching how the football industry works. Made no sense for me. There are better sports out there that I can follow. I love martial arts. Judo is one of my favorites, but some sport I can't relate to because it's very fan based. It has these sort of rabid following that give them up, but it's not their fault. This is how marketers want you to behave. Let's talk about society today as well. Now, you're seeing a pattern that I'm trying to connect. The first pattern is why these brands exist, because of our behavior and our conditioning. Second thing is also what leads to these factors of brands which have cult-like following is society in general. In today's society, we are experiencing more divorce rates. We are noticing children coming from broken homes, and they're coming from maybe violent backgrounds, and they're integrated into society. Before they were ostracized, and there's research to back this up, but we're trying to integrate them into society. When people coming from highly fragmented societies, even expats or people who are asylum seekers, this sort of every human has a deep necessary need for feeling of belonging, security, and other social interaction. Of course, this is Maslow who said that, but it's quite true. And because we need to feel part of a group, a reference group, or an aspirational group, and we need to feel that we're secure in this group, and we are a sense of belonging, and maybe a family over here, this does not go away. It only gets stronger and stronger, and it cannot be replaced by anything else. So people who don't really have a real functional family or parents to take care of them, or sibling love or love from good friends, they will seek out, I would say, emotional attachment from these sort of products and services. It's compensation, right? But it still cannot be replaced, so they go further and further with it, feeling that it will be compensated. Social media behavior is one sort of this, that people spending more time on social media are feeling that they're compensating for their loneliness. So hence people seek out a sense of belonging with others that share the same value and interest, right? Like, for example, video game, online gaming, World of Warcraft is quite famous for that. So you realize that brands are not selling anymore. They're not selling product and services. This was the old school. They know their most strongest customer, the loyal customer, is the most profitable one. They don't need to have attachment with new customers. New customers will be converted into loyal customers through their evangelical ones. So these strong brands, they're like cults. They're not just companies with products to sell, right? And to many of their followers, they are a surrogate family filled with like-minded individuals that, oh, I finally feel at home with you guys. Online gaming is a great example. Reddit thread posters, people who are on Reddit, they literally spend half a day over there. YouTube commentary community who commentate on everything from current affairs to other YouTubers and celebrities. They have a huge community of followers, and they have an impact even on the stock market. You probably noticed recently with the GameStop fiasco on Reddit, and that happens too with Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and all those things. These phenomena are impact of people who are like-minded in a community. One of the greatest phenomena that I've noticed is World of Warcraft. It's an online gaming platform, and a lot of these, well, the majority of the players online are male, young males, probably suffering from loneliness, and also suffering from maybe I would say health issues, maybe they have body shaming issues. They could be either too unhealthy, maybe obese, and maybe too malnourished, but and they might have uh, they may be lacking social interaction quality, so they go online. And there have been reported that people sometimes want to commit suicide, and they make that announcement online. And World of Warcraft, the moderators now have been trained to talk to these individuals like an SOS line, right? So they can monitor conversation, and if someone can flag this conversation saying, we think this person is suicidal, and we need someone to talk to this person to save them, and they do that. So it's now not just a community where people play games online, but also interact on a very deeper level and an emotional level. This is what we call a tribal quality, and these are tribal behaviors. And these companies just happen to sell a product or a service that you might like. Isn't that amazing? So their focus has shifted from branding of a product that I want you to buy this from me, literally, to something quite deeper. Okay, I'm sorry once again. I think I'm extending the time, but I will try to push forward. Maybe I'll have to give up some part of this, but we'll see. I just covered Maslow a bit. Even though it is quite obsolete, it still has a root in loyalty. Because cult members or brand loyalists, they connect to their preferred brands at the highest level, self-actualization level, even though they have not truly achieved it. They believe their brand has no equal and no substitute. They are family, and even for some, it's a code of life. And because of this issue, we can talk about why consumers become brand loyal. Number one is conditioning and learning. The more they learn through their system, their ecosystem of the brand, such as Apple, iCloud, Xbox 360, PlayStation Network, the better they get conditioned to using that system, and they're comfortable with it. And also, please understand, it's hard to research what true aspect or attribute of a brand satisfied customers at a highest level, but it does exist, right? So these people feel more connected to psychological fulfillment than the practical nature of the need. It is the emotional promise that satisfies them. We can also say one of the examples could be the need for belonging, which is you're raised in a culture of a certain time, such as if you were raised in maybe the 60s or 70s in the US, rock music was, probably the need for everyone to feel part of a in-group. So consumers also have been incentivized to use the same product, but it is still not the main reason. It is close to it, but it's not the main reason. Uh, I do not really want to cover too much of the collectivist cultures, but if you want, I can share my slides with you on this. Um, just to let you know that it is unlikely to come as a surprise that different tribes of cultures can predict the possibility of becoming brand loyal. In my country, in Pakistan, people are very loyal to two car brands, Toyota as a car and Honda as a motorcycle. And they will not choose anything else. They're so loyal to it. Maybe in certain countries or certain types of cultures, they choose certain brand because it's acceptable in their culture. They don't want to take risk with others. That is the gist of this part. Unfortunately, I'm almost running the 30-minute mark right now. But just to cover this part once again, uh, it is the need to conform because it's a social obligation for everyone in that sort of tribe. It's a social obligation to accept or reject certain attributes of the brand, and it's considered what we call as being cool. So this is because it is easier to repeatedly buy a product that a group has already approved of, rather than take a risk and buy a product that the other members have not previously used. So this is where brand loyalty sticks, right? The concept that if you want to be part of the in-group, you have to follow their norms, and otherwise you risk being ostracized and rejected from the group, which will break your heart. Okay. Just the last thing, buying a product that sets you apart from what is deemed to be the norm by your group is often considered to be an aspect of individualistic cultures. So if you're taking more risk in buying something out there, you could be an innovator, but you're also separating yourself from the group, or you're attaining a higher level in the group, like a shaman, or you're the village elder in a way. But generally it starts from the bottom. People who want to experiment further are the younger people, but there's more research to be placed into this. Anyways, um, just a few more slides and I'll be finished with it. This is also the need for belongingness can also be explained why brand communities are established, such as not just on social media, but also in gathering like Harley Davidson gathering, surfers gathering together on the beach, general public gathering too, to have a cause and effect issue on the maybe the government, like unions and social unions and all those gathering. So this is when need of belongingness can be felt when belonging to a particular group of consumers who all use the same brand. And this is quite a big concern when it comes to the social aspects of society. I wouldn't say society, of the brand and society, such as the most common issue happened a few years ago, uh, I think during Barack Obama's time, where gay marriage was legalized. Same here in France when gay marriage was legalized, it didn't have the same impact over here. Whereas in the U.S., many companies put a rainbow flag on their brand saying that we are, LGBT, we support it. And whereas the contrary also happened, like Chick-fil-A, which is also a restaurant, said, no, we do not support it. And if you are homosexual, do not come to our restaurant. Vast extremes, and both are successful, right? But they build a community. One built a community on maybe liberal, I would say, principles, the other one on conservative principles, and both survive. But the point is, they segmented themselves according to people's feel for or need for belonging. So brand communities have been said to possess specific types of characteristics, such as feeling of belongingness to an in-group through shared product consumption and shared sense of duty and obligation. So literally, you are a subculture rather than just a community for a brand. What are the incentives? Now, this is the last thing that I want to discuss, and once again, my apologies if the lecture has gone too long. It's generally, this is a 3-hour lecture. I've condensed it according to one of my wonderful students, and she's like, it should be around 20 minutes, so I apologize if it went too long. You can skip certain parts if you want. I'll tell you what parts to skip if you want. But this part you can definitely skip. However, this is a scheme from what do you call it, the brands themselves, and this has been a very old case study. And it's a very interesting one, and is used constantly on mobile video games now. All right. In fact, it's used in other digital marketing mediums too, and I would say restaurant, but mostly online platform video games or even online games on your mobile, such as let's say Candy Crush or Temple Run, which are older versions, which tell you to log in daily, right? The daily login gives you an award, all right? You complete some daily challenges and you get rewards, which are virtual money, which is quite interesting. But how are you incentivized to become loyal to this brand? This is a retrospective point of view, but it's still quite powerful. Now, people, when they're attached to a brand, they need a purpose. Okay, I'm just going to wrap this up over here. You can read the slides on your own. The case study is about car wash, where a control group and a test group were given car wash coupons. One group, Group A, was given car wash with 10 points in it, meaning if they achieve 10 points or they did 10 car washes, the 11th one is free. And the other one received 8, right? If they complete 8 car washes, the 9th one is free. But here's the fun fact. Both of them, when they received it, the one which they got the 10-point one, they already had 2 stamps on it saying that you already have a head start. Okay? So, oh, I have a head start. I got 8 more to go. And the result is quite obvious. People with the 10 washes, they used it more. In fact, I would say over here, there's some 34% of the customers who got the loyalty card with 10 washes and then filled the cards and received their free wash, while 19% of the other ones, the 8 ones, only filled theirs. So this is also not just an incentive. Remember, people want to take up the challenge. If they feel that they belong to a community, they want that brand to also do something for them as a favor, right? Say, hey, repay me for my loyalty. Do something for me. And this is also a bit on another topic called gamification, but it strengthens our cult-like or tribal-like behavior in certain people. Nike is now doing this with launching lucky draws for their new shoes coming out, or even Adidas, which is quite bizarre. People are posting on social media and Instagram that they had the lucky draw, they won or they lost. Whereas I can argue that people in certain parts of the world still don't get food. Over here, their mindset is so fixated on getting the latest Nike shoes that they live and breathe it. And of course, when they get it, they probably will sell it at a higher price. Or the other one will keep it for the next 20 years and then sell it when the price of it goes up, like something like a non-fungible token, NFT. This is probably going to happen. That's my prediction for even toys, Star Wars toys. Most people buy Star Wars related memorabilia or toys from Lego, or even the one when George Lucas was in charge, were older people, and they waited for many years until they resold it for a very high price. But this is what they want. In return for my loyalty, give me something that will make me much more evangelical and much more of a stronger devotee to achieve that sense of nirvana. That being said, okay, I have passed the 35-minute mark, and my apologies for extending it, but I'll be honest, this paper was only written with the intention of curiosity. I have not published it anywhere. In fact, it's just 2 pages. Where is it? I kept it over here. It was a draft for almost my first 2 classes that I taught at the American Business School of Paris, and there were just 2 papers with my idea. I wrote it out, I thought about it, and then someone told me, why don't you publish it? And I said, I don't have the time. But these are my inspirations, and these are the references I've left over here. If you need access to the slides, please don't hesitate to ask. Some of the material might seem like it's plagiarized because I copy-pasted very quickly, and this draft was actually lost on me. I had to find this from the cloud. I actually lost it, and I don't know where the original one is, not even the slides. My old computer died, and within lots of my researchers went with it. I still have to achieve my PhD. Wish me luck with that. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions or whatsoever, don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can send me an email at professor.babermirza@gmail.com. I'll give you all the details later. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.